All right, and good evening, everybody. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Fantasy Sports Boss Daily Wrap Up. My name is Mike Kineski, the Fantasy Sports Boss. And for anybody who's new to my channel here, for the better part of 15 years, I have my own website, thefantasysportsboss.com, until I transitioned into more Twitter and now this YouTube channel where I'm going to be covering fantasy football and fantasy baseball through videos and also tweets and the like and features, and also pretty much anything else that has to do with the world of fantasy sports going forward. So first thing first, make sure you like the video, hit the like button, and then also the subscribe and notification buttons to notification to let you know when we're going to be going live, and also to subscribe so you're always there to see our videos, whether it's live or later on at your own convenience. So, boy, there's a lot going on today, and ordinarily I'd like to keep the live shows, especially during the football season, for Fridays. We're going to be doing football Fridays every week, where we update the injury list and take questions and lineup decisions and all that other stuff, things that you might have on your mind. We'll be doing that every single Friday once the football season starts. So again, make sure you hit the notification button and also the subscribe button for the channel, and also on Twitter at RotoBoss. So you can follow us on Twitter at RotoBoss. All right, so with all that out of the way, the big story of the day, of course, is the 6-game suspension handed down by retired federal judge Sue Robinson for Cleveland Browns quarterback DeShaun Watson. So it turns out to be 6 games, not a full season, not 8 games, but 6. And obviously, I really don't want to get into the moralistic part of this. It already feels, crummy talking about a fantasy football aspect of this, which I totally upfront will say that it's not something I really feel good about doing, but that's what I'm here for, is for fantasy sports. So, I've spoken openly many times in the past on Twitter and on here about my dislike for Watson as a person, and certainly with over 20 women reporting the same thing, where there's smoke, there's fire. But again, I don't want to get into that. I want to keep it to the fantasy aspect of it. And on that front, disaster was averted for Watson and the Browns and his current fantasy football owners. So 6 games, it's a decent chunk of the season, but it's not the entire season. So Watson will be of use, sometime in October and throughout the rest of the season. Now, again, on talent alone, this guy is without peer, other than maybe 2 or 3 other quarterbacks around the NFL. He's certainly a top 5 guy on talent alone. Now the question is, do you want to clog up a roster spot for 6 weeks while you wait for Watson to come back? I myself am not one that likes to do that, so I'm not going to be targeting Watson unless he comes like absolutely dirt cheap. But I can see somebody, like I've said before, drafting an Aaron Rodgers as the 12th quarterback overall, or a Matthew Stafford, or even Dak Prescott, who's starting to slide in drafts, especially with the injuries with the Cowboy wideouts, which we'll get to in a little bit. But I can see having a Rodgers paired with DeShaun Watson working out nicely from a fantasy aspect. And then when Watson comes back, you can flip Rodgers and Watson based on the matchup and have 2 high-end guys. I get it. That's not the worst idea in the world. But again, with all the injuries on a weekly basis, you don't want to clog up a precious roster spot on somebody who's not going to play for 6 weeks. Now, beyond that, Watson being available after 6 games is a boost to Amari Cooper. Watson has a history of peppering his top targets with receptions, as he did with DeAndre Hopkins during their time with Houston. So this is definitely a good thing for Cooper's value. Now, Amari Cooper is a little bit of an enigma himself. I mean, this guy, very high first-round draft choice of the Oakland Raiders back in the day, never really panned out there, showed flashes of brilliance, and also when he came to Dallas did the same thing, but never really attained that ace wideout upside that he carried from the college game. But Cooper does have talent. He still separates nicely. He can make the big play down the field. And again, Watson loves to pepper his top target with catches and throws. So I think Cooper can attain low-end wide receiver 2 value, maybe even high-end wide receiver 2 value. I was very bullish on Cooper. If Watson were to play a full season, I was especially bullish on him. I certainly will target him if I can as a wide receiver 3. Anything more than that, I'm not going to go crazy with Cooper. Nick Chubb Certainly, it's going to help him. There's going to be a lot of focus on the run game with Jacoby Brissett under center. So Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, to a lesser extent, are going to see their value solidified as well. Kareem Hunt, a lot of people forget that he was a top 10 PPR running back when he was on the field last year. Averaged between 15 and 17 touches a game between catches and running plays, whereas Chubb was mostly just a runner, and that's where he remains as just strictly a run guy, going forward. But boy, he's an electric runner, averaging over 5 yards per carry every year of his NFL career. Chubb runs the ball better than just about anybody in the NFL just from that aspect alone. But in PPR formats, he can't ever be more than a running back too, just for the aspect of him not catching the football. So that does help them as well. David Njoku, the Browns re-signed him to a big money contract. Austin Hooper no longer around to clog up looks at the tight end position. Njoku is intriguing. He was a first-round draft pick out of Miami. Very, very impressive combination of size and speed, but he never really showed any sort of consistency. But the Browns still believe in the potential, and with Watson coming in, Njoku is somebody who could be a late-round flyer at tight end. Once you get past the top 2 or 3, 4 or 5 tight ends, then it's just like a graveyard of streaming options. And you want to look for upside. And Njoku does present upside at a challenging position. So I think Njoku is somebody that is worth a look late in your draft. That's pretty much it when it comes to Watson. Again, I don't want to get into anything beyond the on the field stuff. Twitter's been blowing up all day with comparisons to Calvin Ridley and the Ray Rice and all that other stuff, and I get it. Now the ball is in the NFL's court, so the NFL has 3 days to respond in terms of what their own decision will be in terms of a suspension. Are they going to increase it beyond the 6 games? Watson and his camp have already said they're not going to challenge for the ruling from Robinson. So that goes without saying. But if the NFL tries to make it an 8-game or a 10-game or even a full season suspension, then the gloves come off, and then there's going to be hearings and appeals and all the circuit courts and all that other nonsense that we dealt with Tom Brady when Deflategate was going on. So that's what you don't want to see that. We hope to avoid that. The NFL might just throw their hands up and be like, all right, this was a retired federal judge who by law only came to the conclusion that Watson violated the personal code of conduct of the league and slapped him with the 6 games. That was it. Legally, he has not been charged. And that's something that, that seems to carry the day in terms of the legal status and how much you could suspend him going forward. So, that's something that will have to be decided by the NFL. It's going to be a hornet's nest if they do increase the 6 games. I think the NFL is just going to leave it the way it is. But there is a lot of pressure, especially from the female community of NFL fans that really want this suspension to go longer. And I completely understand, and I don't blame them one bit. So that's that in terms of Watson. Now, I just got an alert that Van Jefferson is going to need knee surgery. So Rams head coach Sean McVay has come out just now in the last couple of minutes and said Van Jefferson is going to need knee surgery, so he's going to be out a few weeks. Not sure if that's going to impact the regular season or not, but you would think, it could be, especially with knee surgery and having to ramp Jefferson up, who's the 3rd wide receiver. So now Allen Robinson and Cooper Kupp are going to get even more targets, and Odell Beckham Jr., who's recovering from his torn ACL, suffered in the Super Bowl. Earlier in the year, is somebody that's going to remain on the back burner as an option to come join the team at some point. So Van Jefferson now is going to be out of commission for a few weeks at least, and now his opening day status or week 1 status is now in question. The other biggie today, well, there's 2 more. The bigger of the 2 is Alvin Kamara, his court case hearing, being delayed for 60 days. So now September 29th is going to be the next date for Kamara to go to court for that assault case, knocked the gentleman unconscious at the Pro Bowl earlier in the year. It was an ugly incident. The pictures and the video was not a good sight and really made Kamara look bad. And You talk about the personal conduct policy. It's almost a certainty that Kamara will get suspended. Now, that's been hanging over his value throughout the summer. How many games is Kamara going to get? Is he going to get 1 game, 2 games, 4 games? For Kamara, I think it's going to be the 2 to 4 games, somewhere in that range. I don't think it's going to be 6. I think it's going to be 2 to 4, maybe 4, and then he appeals it and they knock it down to 3 games. But either way, it's a possibility now that this court case gets adjourned again on September 29th, and we don't get any sort of decision with Kamara throughout for this season. It'll be 2023 when we get some kind of clarity here. So now all of a sudden Kamara is looking like a real high-end running back too. He's been going in the second round of drafts, even slipping into the third in some leagues because of the legal trouble hanging over him. Now Kamara looks like he's more of a safe investment. Now, I don't love Kamara this year. Jameis Winston's not somebody who's habitually one to throw to his running backs. Drew Brees just peppered Kamara incessantly over the years because Brees' arm strength wasn't great, especially toward the end of his career, and it just worked. It was a perfect matchup of player and quarterback, and it really unleashed Kamara as a PPR gem on a yearly basis, absolute running back one. But last year, Kamara's at 26 years old now. He's starting to get a little bit up there for a running back. There's a lot of mileage piling up already on him between running and catching the football. Again, I don't love Kamara. I'm not going to grade him as a running back 1 anymore. Absolutely not. But as a running back 2, if I can get him late in the second round, I'm in, especially with the legal situation clearing up a little bit. So I think Kamara, the stock watch is up. I think things are getting better for him in terms of his outlook for the season and his upside in the offense, and he'll be the primary ball carrier for a Saints offense that all of a sudden has a decent array of weapons with not only Kamara and Mark Ingram in the backfield, but also returning Michael Thomas, joining rookie Chris Olave, and free agent signee Jarvis Landry to give QB Jameis Winston, who loves to sling it down the field, a decent trio of receivers. Now, James Washington, Jones fracture is the fear for the Dallas Cowboys free agent signee, who was mostly just a one-trick pony deep threat during his tenure with the Pittsburgh Steelers, comes over to Dallas looking to take advantage of Michael Gallup missing the beginning of the season as he recovers from last year's torn ACL. Now Washington with a Jones fracture, that's going to probably knock him out for quite a while, maybe even all of September. And now Jalen Tolbert, the rookie from South Alabama, 2 1,000-yard seasons, the 2021 Sun Belt Player of the Year, third-round pick by the Cowboys. He all of a sudden becomes very, very interesting. Tolbert possesses very good speed, good route running ability, and he can make the play down the field. What's not to like, right? So in a Dallas offense that now all of a sudden is starved for targets beyond CeeDee Lamb and tight end Dalton Schultz, Jalen Tolbert becomes a person of interest. So anybody that hasn't drafted yet, you need to put Tolbert on your rankings list for wide receivers, and you need to bump him up a little bit. All right, Wan'Dale Robinson of the Giants is another rookie wideout that needs to be bumped up a little bit. He's been showing a lot of good things. As a matter of fact, in Giants practice today, he lined up behind center while Daniel Jones was in the slot for one play. So that was interesting. Speaking of Daniel Jones, he was horrible today. He only completed 5 of 13 passes. The Giants' offense looks like a mess. And the fear that I have as somebody who really is a fan of Saquon Barkley and his comeback potential this year is that Jones will get benched by the end of September for Tyrod Taylor. And Taylor, one thing we've learned about Taylor is that he never throws to his running backs. He's more apt to take off with the ball himself, and that would really hurt Saquon Barkley's PPR outlooks if Taylor becomes a starter. So let's hope that doesn't happen. I don't see the Giant coaching staff, especially since they declined the 5th-year player option on Daniel Jones. I don't see them being overly patient with Jones. So that's something to watch out for there. Justin Jackson signs a free agent contract with the Detroit Lions today. So Jackson will join Jamal Williams to back up DeAndre Swift. This has no bearing on Swift's outlook or workload or whatnot. This is just insurance because Swift, as great as Swift is from a PPR perspective, has been banged up a little bit in his career, even going back to college. He misses 1 to 2 games or even more per year. So this is just insurance. So Jackson was no threat to Austin Eckler when he was with the Chargers. He's no threat to DeAndre Swift this year. The only threat he is to really is maybe Jamal Williams. Maybe Williams doesn't make the team. The Lions maybe try to save some money on Williams, who they gave a 2-year deal to prior to last season to work at least at the onset of last year as a tandem with Swift. But now it looks like Jackson could make a run at the primary backup position, but Swift is going to get all the work he can handle. All right, so That's the NFL news today. Now, as far as Major League Baseball was concerned, the Yankees made a lot of moves today. They first started off by agreeing to a deal with the Chicago Cubs for Scott Efros, who's having a really good season out of the bullpen for them. So, right-hand pitcher, sub-3 ERA, doing a nice job. Picked up a save recently, so he's going to help the Yankees, who, of course, have lost a couple of key guys for the season out of the bullpen there. Michael King, just the latest. And now, of course, closer Clay Holmes is struggling with his sinker. Holmes is not looking too hot right now. His ERA is over 7, I believe, in his last handful of outings. And the Yankees are starting to slide a little bit. So they bring in Scott Efros from the Cubs. And then later on in the day, they bring in Lou Trevino, former all-star closer with the A's last season, not having a good year this year. His ERA is over 6. It's been a really tough go of it for Trevino this year, but he hasn't missed bats in the past. He's had good ERAs and good seasons in the past. So the Yankees, more than most organizations, have a tendency to take on reclamation projects and make good with them, such as Luke Voigt and Clay Holmes himself. So this is something to watch as far as Trevino. And then Frankie Montas, who's having a fantastic season, more strikeouts and innings pitched for the A's. Once they lost out on Luis Castillo, who went to the Mariners, you knew the Yankees would be in on Montas. And that was a big deal there because Luis Severino is on the injured list. And then you have to worry about innings when it comes to some of the other rotation arms on the Yankees. So this was a good move for the Yankees all the way around. The Astros, not to be denied, brought in Trey Mancini from the Orioles. Like, thought Mancini was going to go to the Mets, so now you got to wonder what the Mets are going to do. They're going to go to the Cubs and try to get David Robertson and Wilson Contreras. I don't think Contreras is going to happen. If you're a Mets fan, I wouldn't get my hopes up. The Met front office loves the way the pitching has been for the Mets, and they love the interaction with Thomas Nido and James McCann. I don't think they want to fool with the strength of the team. Everybody's pitching great. Taijuan Walker's having a monstrous season. Scherzer. Carlos Carrasco had a little bit of a dip in June, but he's come back now and is back on track. So I don't think there's any reason to bring in Wilson Contreras. David Robertson, on the other hand, would help them. I think Robertson, with his closing experience, is somebody that definitely would be good in the bullpen to set up for Edwin Diaz, who's having a ridiculous season with his record pace in terms of strikeout rate. How about that? How that's all worked out? You know, when Jared Kalenic was traded by Brody Van Wagenen, who, of course, is no longer the GM of the Mets, the knee-jerk reaction was the Mets blew it big time, bringing on a fading Robinson Cano and Edwin Diaz, who at the time had coming off a great year with the Mariners, but then Diaz flopped in his first couple of seasons with the Mets. Now, with Jared Kalenic struggling, looking like a quad A player who can't hit major league pitching in 3 different stints with the team, now on the yo-yo train back and forth from the minors to the majors, Diaz looks like the best reliever in all of baseball. In fact, he has been the best reliever in baseball this year, deserving of his all-star selection, putting up a record strikeout per 9 pace. So, you know, it's funny how things work out. You got to give these trades more time to marinate and see what happens. So, we'll see what happens with the Mets, who get the Nationals tonight. Max Scherzer against Patrick Corbin in the biggest, one-sided pitching matchup you're ever going to see, I think, as far as this season is concerned. So there you go. There you have it. That's the update for today. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification button if you haven't done so already, so you can keep viewing my videos as we go along. And also follow us on Twitter @RotoBoss. So until then, next time, we will talk soon. Have a good night, everybody.